Hey guys, it's Alex with Manic Game Store, and today I'm going to show you one of my favorite pieces of terrain, which are my trees. These things are highly detailed and incredibly durable, and most of the stuff that you need for these things is right in your backyard, depending on where you live, of course. You might have to go to Hobby Lobby or Michael's for some of the moss, but either way, there's not a whole bunch of glue and wires and paint that you have to deal with that make really unrealistic looking trees. These ones come straight out of nature, and they're incredible, and I'm going to show you how to make them right now.
Okay, so I'm excited to show you how to build these trees. I love the detail they have on them, and as you can see, each and every one of them comes out different because nature is different, and those are the supplies we're going to be working with. They're also very durable, very solid. I love them. Okay, so let's cut the chit-chat and get straight to the tools that we're going to be using. One, you're going to want a glue gun. Now, as you can see, this bad boy has seen a lot of war. He's got some crap stuck on the side, but I've been having this warm up for a couple minutes, so it's good to go. Secondly, you're going to want a pair of snips. Now, you can get these from the jewelry department and the beads and other stuff like that. You're not going to find them in hardware tools, but if you're building war models, you've got a pair of snips anyways. Another thing that you're going to want to do is a file or a grinder. This is going to help with some of the wood that we're going to be working with. This one you can find at a hardware store like Home Depot or Lowe's because it's really basically just got 4 different settings on it, and it's really, really solid. Also, you might want a pair of scissors, maybe a box cutter, just some cutting utensils. You're going to need to go for them anyways. And last but not least, the materials we're going to be working with today are some just solid, good twigs that you're going to find out in your backyard.
Really, really basic.
It's one of the reasons we need the snips. Also, we're going to need some moss. Now, this is moss collection. You've seen this maybe when you go to Hobby Lobby. They have the bags of moss. This is meant to be used in planter material, like if you're putting together flower arrangements or whatever, you put these in to make it look more natural. But this is called sheet moss. This is sheet moss. You get a bag of this stuff. You want to make sure that it's the sheet moss that's clumpier, and I'll show you if I can open it up. The main focus here is that this stuff comes in a sheet. It's not just any kind of moss that you find. This stuff is the best. It's like $4 a bag, but they have different mosses there at Hobby Lobby, and you want to grab the right stuff because it wraps around the branches better. So, sweep off our area. We're already getting dirty, which is an awesome start, and let's go for it. Ugh, got dirt all over me. Love it. So, when we get started, we're going to be working with tempered hardboard. Now, you might recognize this stuff because this is pegboard. Whenever you go into anybody's garage and they've got tools hanging up, they've got those board up on the back with all those tiny holes in it that have got the hooks on it that basically hold a lot of tools and hooks in there, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, this is tempered hardboard, and you can find this at Lowe's or Home Depot. They have it in sheets, and it's got no holes in it, which is awesome. You're going to want to take and cut it down into sizes that are about, I don't know, 2 inches by 2 inch squares. Really simple here. And the next thing you're going to want to do is take a drill, and you're going to want to drill a hole through the center. Now you can see that the hole is not that big, and it's just big enough basically to stick one of the stems in for the tree branches as it sockets in there. Really simple, okay? So, after you do that, we have our pair of scissors here because we're actually not cutting with this. It's a great hole widener. It sounds so dumb, but realistically, if the hole that you drilled is just a little too short because the branches that you get are just a little bit too big or too small because they all vary, just go ahead and stick your scissor blade in the center there and twist until you make enough room. On the bottom here, we're going to have some rough edge poking through. That's what we're going to use the rough edge for our file for, and just grind down. You can see right there, the hole is smaller, it's better,
It's good. It makes sense. Okay, so next you're going to want to take the tree branch. Now we're going to be working with this one today, as you can see here. And we're going to take our snips, and we're going to cut off anything that's too long. Anything basically over an inch. So we're going to clip this off here, leave some room, and you're going to end up with a piece that looks like that.
Show it for the camera, looks like that. This is a good tree trunk. Even if it's just got the 2 sprongs on it, It's great because it will just hold enough moss, and the moss is actually going to cover up a lot of the branches. Now on the bottom,
you can see this is broken, so you're going to want to take your snips and clip that flat as you can.
it's actually good to have that little bead socket right there where it's got that edge or that knot on it, because that's actually going to keep it from sliding all the way through the base. Either way, you're going to glue it anyways. So
after we take our base, we socket into the hole. Now, as I said, this one fits because I measured it to make sure that it worked just correctly, and then we're going to take it and we're going to set it solid there.
Okay, the other piece that we need is definitely some super glue
to glue into the base. We're just going to put it right at the base of the tree and the wood,
and we're just going to let it soak in just a little bit. As you can see here, boom, for both cameras.
Right there. Very, very simple, and you want to make sure that the tree lays flat. After you put it in the socket, if for some reason any part of the tree is coming out of the bottom there, you can just hold the base firmly, not the tree, the base, and just shave off the bottom to make sure that it's definitely going to stand solid and flat. Okay?
Boom. Now we want to get a bit of sheet moss. Okay? We're going to pull out a nice clump or two, and we're not going to rip it apart too much because we want it to cling and wrap around the tree trunks right here. Give the super glue time to hold and become solid, and then you're set. After that, we're going to take our super glue and we're going to run it along the stem of the tree. Now this is the part that can actually get a little painful if you're not careful, and that's because hot glue is actually hot, so that can be kind of difficult. But once you've put hot glue basically on the stems, just the top, as you can see here, we're going to take a bit of moss and leave it actually long like this and wrap it around almost like a blanket, just to wrap it around. And then we're going to pinch it together. When you pinch it together like this and it gets on here, whoops, we dropped it. After it gets on here, it's going to be a little flaky, and you're going to want to pull off some tufts that are just wanting to fall off, and that's fine. But pinch it on there, rough it up just a little bit, and make it look natural like a tree. Okay? Now this one is a Y-split, so we don't really see trees that look exactly like that. So we might want to put a little bit more hot glue on the moss itself and add another piece to the top, because we've got some stem poking through right there. We've got stem poking through right there, and we want to cover that up to make it look more natural. Alright, so we're going to take a little bit more hot glue. We're going to run it over the top, just around the moss, just lay it on there loosely. Set this aside, and you see how it's just sitting on the top there, creating those little strings of hot glue that it does. We're going to trim off just a little bit more, pull it apart like this, and we're just going to blanket it again right on the top and smush it down. This can get painful because sometimes, ouch, just like that, the hot glue has pushed its way through the moss onto my finger, and it can burn just a little bit. But no guts, no glory. If you're into modeling and you're not getting burned or cut or bruised or murdered or dead, you're doing it wrong, because this stuff is awesome, and that's part of the fun. So we pull all the little cobwebbies out of the hot glue that you can see here, these little strings that kind of come up. We pinch other stuff together, and in the end, you end up getting, after you shake, 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 some of the fluff is starting to come off that's really, really loose, and you've got it just set like this. Now, as you can see right here, there's a little open spot that's balding, so we'll take a little bit of hot glue. I'm going to need another one of my hot glue sticks. You ever do that thing where you're working on something and you just set something down and it disappears? I have no idea where my hot glue sticks went. I had 2 of them, and I specifically set them aside. There we go. They were camouflaged. Put them in the back of the gun. Slide along the base of the tree, just like you have here, just like you have here, and push the moss back around it. You can tamp it down with your fingers to try and make sure that you don't make contact with the hot glue, but in the end, you're going to get a nice little fritzy tree, and it looks a little gloppy. It looks a little different. All of these are going to look a little different, and they're going to look fritzy, and they're going to look crazy, okay? All of these are going to kind of have their own unique shape to them, and that's part of the ways that trees are even when you go outside. So you can mess with them just a little bit. You can add more moss to it to make them bigger. You can do other things like that, but in the end, this ends up actually looking really cool on your board. Now, the next step of this, after the glue gun spits another glue stick at me, is to base it, okay? One of the things that I have is a giant vat of Elmer's Glue All. This is what you get in the tiny tubes, but when I go to Office Max or Office Depot or whatever, they actually sell it in the school supply section, and this is like a 1-gallon jug of Elmer's Glue, which is awesome. So I love it. Picking up moss off the floor, putting it back in to the bag because we're not going to need it anymore today. And we're good. So the next step that you want to do is you want to get a cup, okay? You're going to go ahead and fill up the cup with a little bit of dirt and glue. Some of the basing that I do for this is really, really good because it's actually a concrete of glue and dirt. And it's better than flocking. It's better than putting down Elmer's glue and then sprinkling dirt on top of it, because basically the glue is just having to grab a hold of the dirt, and you can get bald spots that way. For me, I actually like to mix the Elmer's glue with the dirt so that it creates a cement that I can spread evenly on it. I'll show you. Alright, so we're back. The tools that you're going to need for doing the basing is going to be basically like a plastic cup you want to be able to throw away after you're done. Inside of it is I put some dirt, basically some really basic fine brown dirt, and the way that you get it more and more and more refined is basically to get a hand colander sifter that you can get at a cooking supply store. They look like a little metal net that basically is a scoop, and I have mine somewhere. It's just not here right now. It's decided to disappear for this video, of course. But the dirt that you have here is very, very fine. As you see it pouring out, it's very, very thin, and you can do that just by sifting dirt down to the bottom, removing the big stuff. You don't want any stones, any rocks, or anything like that. It's just dirt. It's not that complicated. The next thing is that you're going to want to pour in a ratio of glue that's probably about 1/3 glue, 2/3 dirt, because you don't want it to get too thin and too white and too milky, because then it's just going to be runny. Pour in some glue on there, set my gallon of glue back down, put the cap back on, and then what I like to work with is actual butter knives. Now you can get like a whole pack of like 10 or 20 of these at the dollar store. They're really cheap metal ones, but they're sturdy and they're great for spreading. And I'm just going to mix it around until it creates a nice thick mud that just feels like soft serve chocolate ice cream, basically. You can see that. You can see it's muddy. You can see it's gloppy. It's really good. And then we're going to start to spread it on the base. Now, you just want to mud this on there. Just spread it on like you're spreading on cream cheese. And what's nice about this stuff is that as it spreads on and you flatten it out and work with it, it's going to dry, and it's not only going to act as a glue for the tree, solidifying another layer of glue of tree to the base. It's going to make it very, very durable, and it's going to make it look very realistic. It's going to make it look like it's in a natural wood, like dirt and everything like that. On the sides, we just scrape the blade, sliding across, clean up the mess. It's nice, it's relaxing, it's simple, and you're just pasting it on there, pasting it on. You can hold on to the trunk while you're doing this, slide the blade across. It might take you a couple times, it took me, but then in the end, the base is covered, and it's really set, and it's solid, and it's mud on there. The bottom has no mud on it, but as you can see, the mud sets, and before long, after it dries, it becomes really solid and set, and it looks really, really good. That's how you build a tree from the ground up. We started with twigs, we started with some wood, we started with some branches that we clipped down, we started with some sheet moss, and we slowly put it together until we got a solid tree. Now, you can honestly take, when you get more comfortable, bigger plats like this of wood that are cut down into like 4x4 squares and actually drill 3 or 4 holes on here and put a couple trees in at once, making yourself a tiny little cluster forest. I know that I've made one that's over on my shelf there that's probably a 12x12, and it's really, really large, and it's nice because I can set it. Now, the reason why we use the wood here instead of like foam board is because the mud mixture that we use is actually really wet. And foam board, the white foam board that you can get that most people use for basing, will actually warp. And it'll make it so that your tree, when you set it down, wobbles, and it's just not as durable. This stuff I can drop from like 6 inches or whatever, and nothing happens to it. It's just great, you know? It's really, really simple. It just bounces and it's done. It's good, you know? It's a lot better than some of the other stuff that's out there. And yeah, every once in a while a little bit of moss kind of flakes off if you're really, really rough with it. But in the end, I've had these for a while. They just work great. I hope that you guys had fun building these trees. I hope you build a lot more. If you have any comments or suggestions or just questions, go ahead and ask me in the comment section below. And go ahead and like, subscribe, and share this to your other friends who might be building terrain and want to have some unique trees that are not cookie cutter and expensive. I think you guys are awesome. Have a great day.